Welcome back to my fourth Zoom series interview of After the Play Ends, Hanging the Cleats Up. I am joined here today with Hannah Skendziel, and she is my roommate's sister. So for some little background, I'm super excited to get into her experience and talk about her struggles post-graduation. Hannah, you have the floor. Tell us a little bit about what got you into your sport.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I think I've just always wanted to play volleyball. So by the time I was finally able to find like a club program, I think we had moved to Utah and I was about 11 years old when that program was like finally available for girls my age. And then it just kind of was history from there. Um, Kept going, became obsessed with it, and stopped until I had to.
Yeah. What age did you start playing?
So I started playing competitively at 11, but I think I started going to camps at around 11 years old, not 10, 11 years old. Um, and yeah,
Cool.
that's
So
where it started.
yeah, what drew you to volleyball? Is there any thing specific?
I
I know.
think it just looked really cool. I hated running, so I knew soccer and basketball. I was so bad at basketball. I tried it. Um, I could always like out jump everyone, like all the boys, because it's a co-ed league. And so I was like, okay, hate running, but can
Yeah,
jump. And so volleyball kind of seemed to fit pretty well in that space. And
yeah,
then just kind of stuck with it from there.
yeah. That's so interesting because coming from a soccer player, volleyball players were so cool. Like the things they can do, it's just so fun. And I was like, oh, we just have to run around in baggy shorts, and you guys get to jump in, like way cooler than us. So
Wide. Yeah, it all looked fun. It hurt a lot, but once you learned how to do it right, then it was really fun. So it's like it was fun getting
awesome.
into.
So what made you want to play in college?
I think I remember just kind of saying to myself out loud, like, it'd be really cool to play in college. Like that's pretty big. And then when we moved, or no, we were still in Utah, and I had started playing for a slightly more competitive league who had the U17, U18 girls who were going like feeding into like the University of Utah and like this big D1 program. These girls were like 6'2", 6'3", like massive, and they were all like going to these schools. I was like, I want to be like them. And I think it just kind of stuck.
Mhm.
And so picking up on that work ethic and seeing what they did and still loving the process. So I just kind of stuck with it from there and always had, I guess, those like girls that I followed myself and wanted to be kind of like them.
Yeah, I
And
think
then,
it's the same for me, honestly, too. I seriously I looked up to so many soccer players and I was like, I want to play as long as I can. And I think
mhm.
that's such an interesting thing about how we're inspired by so many females in
Yeah.
sports and stuff like that. So tell me a little bit about your college experience. Where did you go and how that was for you?
Yeah. So I actually started at Piedmont. So I played one season there,
Mhm.
and then decided after the season to transfer. Didn't really have like a goal in mind of where I wanted to go. Just kind of wanted to go somewhere far away. Um, so then I moved home for the semester,
Mhm.
and went back to my old training facility in Tampa. And then kind of talked to schools all around. I looked at schools in Texas. I looked at schools in Hawaii, California, and then like the Northeast. And I was super drawn to like the cities. I'd never been to like New York or Boston. So it's like, I really want to go up there. And then that's how I found Felicia University, which is where I ended up. And that was that process. And it wasn't super smooth sailing, but it wasn't as scary as I thought it would be, just because I'd already gone through the recruiting process getting to Piedmont. So the transfer was just kind of re-entering, reaching out to the program that I had. It was like NCSA was who helped me kind of compile my videos and set like have formats of how to email coaches. So I just kind of started doing that all over again, and it helped quickly kind of find new schools and make me. I was already more comfortable talking to coaches, so that definitely helped too.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because me and Kelsey obviously both go to Piedmont. Kelsey is
Mhm.
Hannah's sister.
Yeah.
And when she was like, yeah, my sister went here, I was like, that's so random because now you're coming here and there was like no correlation at all. So I always thought that was super interesting. But my Zoom series after the play ends is to hopefully give context and advice to current athletes going through similar things and similar struggles. So, along the lines of transferring, what advice would you give to any current athletes going through that right now?
With transferring, figure out, why are you transferring? What was your main reason? Are you not happy with the coaching, with the team, the school itself, the location? Do you what like find out kind of what you're looking for? And I think that helps me a lot and kind of narrow down, okay, I don't want to go to this school, or I don't want to go here because it's just like Piedmont, or it's in the same kind of locations or anything like that. um yeah, I guess finding the why is kind of the biggest advice, and then just
Yeah.
following that
Mhm.
through.
Alrighty, sorry about that, everyone watching. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, some Wi-Fi issues, but that's okay. The show must go on. But this is my Zoom series after the play ends with my fourth Zoom guest, Hannah Skendziel, and we were just in the middle of talking about the transfer process. And right when you cut out, you asked, or I asked you for any advice that you had for any current athletes going through the same things. And you were talking about how important it is to have a why and to know why you want to transfer. And I just was saying right when it cut out, I said how much of how great that advice is, because if you're very unhappy in a situation, there's no need to stay there and there's no need to just force yourself to be in an athletic program or in a school that you don't like. So I really love that part of it. And I wanted to ask you then about how transferring helped you or changed your perspective and maybe had made for a more positive experience in your sport.
Yeah, I think transferring, so it was funny because the transfer, it wasn't the whole grass is on greener on the other side. It was a great process, and I was happy to continue with where I went. But you're always going to find something that you don't love.
Mhm.
So I
True.
think trying to find like my new group and just like really fit in. You have a team, so that kind of helps right there, but just kind of like readjusting. And it was a completely new area, so it was like very overwhelming in that sense too. So yeah, I think there's always going to be something. So you're going to transfer, and then you're going to find a new, like, oh, I don't like this, or this part is great but this part stinks compared to what I was just at, or vice versa.
Mhm.
So I think always just kind of trying to find the positive and remembering the initial why
Yeah,
also helps. And
exactly.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm really glad that we talked about your transfer experience and your background experience when you were in athletics, but now I would love to transition more over to your life and your struggles post graduation. And for my Zoom series, we are talking about current or retired athletes and what they've struggled with the most in order to use this as a resource for current athletes. So my question is, what have you struggled with the most post graduation?
Yeah. And I love this because I didn't have any of these resources. It was just kind of like figuring it out as I went.
Yeah.
So me ending with volleyball wasn't like the normal, you have your senior day and you get to say goodbye, ended with like an injury. So that was like the first whammy.
Mhm.
So I think kind of losing like your physical ability for a while and having to like rehab from that. And then also seeing like your physical, like your physique and just your body start to change. You're going from 2, 3 workouts a day, crazy practices, and eating a certain way, and then like all of a sudden you're kind of doing the same thing you used to, and whether you're injured or not, your body's going to shift because you're not doing those crazy workouts, and our bodies were literally designed essentially from like such a young age
Yeah.
to perform this sport. So I tried to maintain the same workouts that I was doing, and it's almost impossible because you're not on the court or you're not on the field for 2-3 hours. So that I think was one of the hardest because it was not just leaving volleyball and like going into regular workout, it was also being hurt. So trying to come back from being hurt and then also get back to a physique I was happy with. But then, and I've talked to my sister about this a lot, where the body dysmorphia thing kind of kicks in. You're like looking back and you're like, wow, I used to look like this, and then you don't see the same thing. And it's this endless cycle that I'm quite a few years now, and I'm still like, oh wow, like this is what I really looked like. But in my head, I looked like not like that is not the person I
Yeah.
saw. And that was definitely one of the hardest parts, I think, for
Yeah.
sure.
I think I'm so glad you brought this point up because as female athletes, I don't think that there's enough information or enough like preparation for what's going to happen to our bodies.
Yeah.
It's something that's totally swept under the rug. And as you get older, your body changes a little bit, but when you're still active, you're like, whatever. But like once you graduate or once you're done, you're like, oh my gosh, I've done this sport where I've stayed active without like having to push myself outside of my sport. And now you have to find something that you like doing and something that you're comfortable with and trying to maintain the fit and the exercise aspect. So tough.
Yeah, and also like finding, because so with soccer and volleyball, like you're into it, you're having fun. Finding something that you like too. Like not
The
everyone likes
thing.
going to the
Yeah.
gym and lifting. Like not everyone likes that kind of stuff. And so
Yeah.
it's like if I didn't like that, I literally don't know what I would have done, because that's a whole nother ballgame of like finding different ways to stay active. And
Yeah. Exactly. I like struggled with that a lot too because I thought I hated running, so I didn't run for a while. And then I went to the gym and I really loved the gym. And then I got burned out from the gym. And I'm like just now a senior, so I'm graduating in May. I haven't even technically graduated yet. And I'm like already struggling with like the staying active after the graduation part. So it's interesting for me to see that. Um, but what advice could you give to anyone going through the any body image issues, any trying to stay active after they're done?
Um, I would say a couple different things. Number one, like go easy on yourself. Like it's hard. There's the media, there's so many like
Yeah.
different factors out there. Like it's obviously easier said than done, but like don't compare yourself to the girl next to you or the girl that you're seeing on Instagram or wherever people see their stuff now. Like
Mhm.
everyone's body is different. And so maybe the fitness model that you're like trying to be like now, or that's your new physique goal, has been training differently for like the past 10 years. So
Yeah.
like number one, don't compare yourself. Easier said than done. But then also like just find something you like. Find your new niche. And like even if you get bored or you get burnt out, like just keep trying different things, because it ebbs and flows. You're gonna be super into lifting, or then you're gonna be super into yoga, or then you're super into running, and just go with it. Just have
Mhm.
fun, because we don't have to perform a certain way anymore. So we can kind of play around with it and just enjoy life a little differently.
I love that advice, Hannah, because for so long you're just like wired to be like, I have to do good in this fitness test. I have to be X amount of minutes fit in order to perform well. But like now it doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah, you're not trying to hit a new vertical goal or a new
yeah,
sprint time. It's like, okay, I can just
go to
do
the gym
this
and
and
have fun
it's
and
fun.
not put
Yeah,
pressure on myself. Exactly.
totally different ball game.
For sure. Oh no, are we frozen again?
No, I can see you. Am I
Okay,
frozen?
we're good.
Okay.
Having a heart attack, everyone, but we're good. Okay. So for my last question, I just wanted to ask, since you mentioned the media, how has the media affected you after your transition in a negative or in a positive way?
I think because I was always like, even during my volleyball days, I was super into weightlifting and fitness, and kind of had set that goal outside of all. I was like, ooh, maybe when I'm done, I'll get into this because I can actually focus on lifting a certain way.
Mhm.
So in some ways it was very positive, but then I think it started to become very toxic because I became so consumed. So I think kind of curating like who you follow and really being careful with the types of advice or because everyone has an opinion, everyone has some sort of advice that they are like, this is a holy grail and this is what you got to do. And it's like, maybe dig a little deeper,
Yeah.
find like actual people that have done the research. And it's good to have, role models, but I found trying to follow people who look more like me or have similar physiques has helped, or just like finding things that are more positive in the media instead of constantly looking at people who are complaining or posting a certain way, and just it doesn't seem to help.
Mhm.
And so I think kind of curating what you're seeing, and obviously you can't look away from everything. Like some things are just gonna find their way in. You're like, oh, dang, didn't want to see that, but not letting it get to you too much, and just kind of building that thicker skin because it's gonna be everywhere.
Yeah.
TV, movies, social
Yeah,
media, it's all over. So yeah,
exactly. I think the hardest part for me has been like I'm seeing like the fitness industry shoved down my throat on like every platform. So it's so hard for me to not be like, oh my gosh, how do I look like that? And to just obsess over
the
the
amount of
comparisons and stuff.
the amount of people I actually had to unfollow who
Hmm.
were in the fitness industry that you would think are like great influencers,
Yeah.
because I became so obsessed. I'm like, I want to look like this. And then I forget if it was my mom or who, I want to say it's my mom. She was like, you don't even, she is 5'2". She's been lifting. She's never played a sport in her life. Like, this
Yeah.
is seriously, you're not going to look like that. And I was like, and that's the other thing, is everyone's muscle makeup is different. Everyone's goals are different. So, and people get work done, and like, that's fine. But that's other things that unfortunately not everyone's transparent about.
Yeah.
And I think that also makes it really hard because sometimes you're comparing to someone who's had a ton of work done and they're not stating it, or maybe you don't know what to look for. So you're like, oh, I want to look like that, but then it's physically not possible. Like, you have to find a surgeon for that. So I think that's another thing too, is just kind of keeping that in mind of,
Yeah. It's such a toxic cycle because I literally do the same thing. I
yeah.
am 5'2". I've played soccer all my life, so I have like muscles. Like I have bigger legs than most girls who are taller than me as well. But it's so hard for me to see like a 5'6", 5'7" girl who's just super lean and be like, I want to look like that so bad. But like you're right. Like it literally is physically impossible. And it's just toxic to look at.
Mhm.
The media is, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just kind of being realistic with yourself. And like, obviously you can change, and but it takes time. Like, fitness is not a, you do it for a week and all of a sudden now you have abs and now your
I'm like,
legs look like this. And yeah, I think, and progress pictures, like, that helped me a lot. Just kind of like seeing and like going back and like seeing where I was at.
yeah.
Uh, and kind of bring me back to reality, because when you're looking in the mirror, like, you really don't see yourself, and that sounds so
Not at
weird because
all. No, you're right. Yeah.
that's you. But then like looking back at pictures, it's, or just like pictures from other things in general, I'm like, wow, that's what I looked like. Like, that's not who I saw. And so it's just, it's crazy.
It's rewarding, definitely. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Hannah, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm sorry for all the Wi-Fi issues that we had, but we got through it.
You did.
This has been my fourth episode of my Zoom series, After the Play Ends, Hanging the Cleats Up, with my Zoom guest, Hannah Skendziel. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me.